My name is Lou Elizondo. In 2009, my life changed forever. That's when I was recruited into a highly sensitive government program that investigated unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, also commonly known as UFOs. My work for the U.S. government goes back almost 30 years to when I joined the U.S. Army. From there, I had the good fortune of being recruited into various programs within military intelligence. During my career, I served my country around the world managing and directing missions including counter-narcotics, counter-espionage, counter-terrorism, and counterinsurgency. And it was later in my career that I actually began running special access programs for the U.S. government, and in some cases reported directly to the White House and the National Security Council.
My name is Jay Stratton, and for over 16 years, on behalf of the U.S. government, I worked as a senior intelligence official on the unidentified aerial phenomenon topic. I joined the Army at the age of 17 and left for a career in military intelligence with 8 combat deployments, including Iraq and Afghanistan. After the Army, I joined Naval Intelligence, and then I transitioned to the Defense Intelligence Agency, where I was the Chief of Air and Space Warfare inside of the Defense Warning Office. It was at the DIA that my colleagues and I started getting reports of what are now called UAP. We went all over the government, the Pentagon, every intelligence agency, anywhere we could think to try to find the UAP program, assuming there was one. As far as we could tell, no one in the United States government had a UAP program. So my colleagues and I began a new program which ultimately became ATIP.
The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP.
The funding for this effort was sponsored by then Senate Majority Leader, Senator Harry Reid.
And together, myself, Jay Stratton, and our team, for nearly a decade, investigated UAP incidents around the world. Based on hard evidence and data, we learned that UAPs present serious national security concerns and a potential existential threat. Simply put, transmedium crafts, vehicles that have the capability to operate in space, air, and water, and seemingly defy all that humanity knows about physics, have been operating with complete impunity around the world since at least the 1940s. At ATIP, we had access to some of the most sensitive videos in the Department of Defense inventory. If you could be in my shoes and see what I've seen in folks like Jay Stratton, there would be zero shadow of a doubt that these things are real and they are not made by humans.
The things that I've seen, the clearest videos, the best evidence that we have that these are non-human intelligence remain classified.
The classified data that we had access to when we joined the program was indisputable.
There's 80 years of this data that the public isn't even aware of.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
For 23 years and 10 months, I was in the United States Air Force as an A-10 pilot. And while I was at NORAD, I witnessed an event that I will remember forever. There was an unknown object we were tracking on radars, and the commander says, "I want that target." That means intercepted. Fighters all the way down the eastern seaboard were scrambled, and none of the fighters were successful in intercepting or running it down. We were unable to maintain air sovereignty over North America.
On November 14th, 2004, we were on board the USS Nimitz, which is a nuclear aircraft carrier. I was the most senior person in the squadron flying. I had launched off Nimitz to do an air defense exercise off the coast of San Diego, California. And I ended up chasing a UAP known as the Tic Tac UAP. It was about 40 feet long, and just sitting there in space, you can kind of see it start to accelerate, and as it gets in front of us, it's gone. This thing was doing 32,000 miles an hour. So obviously that technology is not the United States.
As we were watching this Tic Tac object maneuver in this bizarre way, it was obvious that it wasn't conventional. This was defying those laws of physics, laws of gravity that as pilots we live and die by.
We literally had these things stalking Navy vessels on deployment. the frequency in which UAP were being reported to us was increasing.
They were ubiquitous. We were seeing them nearly daily out there.
My gosh, there's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
And then we actually almost had a midair with one of these objects. This now became a safety issue. 2 aircraft from my squadron were flying out in close proximity to each other in section formation, so about 150 feet apart or so. One of these objects went right in between those 2 aircraft, right past the lead aircraft, and the lead aircraft was able to visually see the object, and he simply described it as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere.
To be clear, non-human intelligence has been actively conducting ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance of some of our most sensitive U.S. military facilities and nuclear sites.
They have both deactivated and activated nuclear weapons with both the United States and Russia.
The nuclear weapons that were activated in Russia were pointed at us. And from that perspective, the stakes really could not be any higher.
This is an emerging and disruptive threat for the United States and truly a national security concern.
And by the way, this isn't just happening here in the United States. This is happening all over the world, and it's occurring with greater frequency.
When I met Lou Elizondo in the Pentagon, he made me aware not only that this phenomenon was real, but it was an ongoing, persistent phenomenon. The Secretary of Defense didn't know, the Congress didn't know, senior policymakers didn't know, and nobody was doing anything about it other than Lou and a handful of colleagues. I was shocked and I was stunned and immediately was concerned about intelligence failures that have occurred in the past and the disasters that have ensued, and determined immediately to do whatever I could to help get Lou to the Secretary of Defense, to move that information forward.
Each time Jay and I and others tried to raise the alarm bells and bring this issue up to the appropriate level, we were met with fierce resistance. The stigma alone and the taboo of the topic, the historical association of UFOs, was something that for most people in leadership positions was too big of a pill to swallow. In fact, the stigma was so strong that people either believed A, the topic wasn't real, or B, the stigma was going to somehow taint or tarnish their career, so they didn't want to touch it.
We couldn't get the leadership in the Pentagon to look at the actual scientific data that showed that there is a strong national security threat.
They were more worried about the impact on their reputation than they were about the safety of the nation.
On top of that, we were shocked to find we were getting pushback from people in the Pentagon based on their religious beliefs.
There really were religious fundamentalist extremists within the Pentagon that had a severe adversity to this topic.
These are national security experts, senior members of the national intelligence community who are putting their religion above national security.
A senior DOD official actually stopped me in the hallways in the Pentagon and told me that we were doing the devil's work.
I had to deal with people who were senior to me who were telling me in their world that these are demons and we are poking demons and messing in Satan's world and all these other things that to me, I was like, I can't believe this is coming out of your mouth. I'm briefing about an advanced aerospace vehicle that has been detected on multiple sensors that's absolutely there, and you're telling me that you think these are demons and that we shouldn't even look at them and study them. My mind was blown. While we were trying to overcome all of these hurdles, we discovered another deeply hidden and much larger UAP program.
This program was so sensitive that it was withheld from the Secretary of Defense, Congress, and even the President of the United States. This program is referred to as the Legacy Program. This program had been capturing, retrieving, and reverse engineering UAPs since at least 1947. On numerous occasions, these retrievals included the bodies of non-humans, some sort of intelligent being that is not human. When Jay and I began knocking on doors and trying to get access into the Legacy Program, there was this almost like an immune response by the legacy program, and antibodies came out of everywhere to try to shut us down.
We began communicating with scientists involved in the legacy program, but their leaders, when they learned of this, shut it down aggressively.
Not only were we met with fierce resistance and stonewalling, we actually had people angry at us that were even asking the question itself, as in, what right do we have to inquire about the legacy program, despite the fact that we were running ATIM.
Put yourself in my shoes. I'm conducting investigations of ongoing UAP activity, and there's this legacy program that has at least 80 years of information that could help us better understand this problem and protect national security, and they refuse to give it to us.
When it became clear that we couldn't work through the system, I knew from experience, having worked with the Senate Armed Services Committee, what it takes to move this oil tanker. Think about this immense ship that has massive inertia, and you're trying to get it to change course. When it comes to the Department of Defense, only Congress has the wherewithal to do that. And the way to get Congress's attention is first and foremost through the press. I knew we had to get the press engaged, to help get the Hill engaged, to then get back to changing the Defense Department to study this problem, to figure out, is there a threat? Where are these things coming from and how do they work?
As government employees, we're not allowed to talk to the media. So Lou and I strategized on how to overcome this hurdle.
There were really only two choices. The first choice was make peace with silence and sit on what is humanity's greatest secret, all the while keeping Americans in the dark. Or two, I could resign my position in protest and fulfill my obligations to the American people by telling the truth about what I know about UAP.
There was this difficult moment where Lou had to decide, do I throw in the towel? Do we give up on this? Do we ignore this? Or does he fall on his sword?
I couldn't, nor would I ever reveal classified information, but I knew that if I could say just enough at the unclassified level to make the media aware and our government officials aware of the reality of the UAP topic, then Jay hopefully will be able to use that momentum to go ahead and achieve the goals that we set out to achieve inside the government.
And we had a number of difficult conversations because Lou was giving up a very promising career. He loved what he was doing. He was very good at what he was doing. It's such a profound life decision for Lou to make for himself and his family.
During one of my routine hellish commutes back home, as I was stuck in traffic, looking in front of me and behind me and seeing thousands of cars, I had this profound sense of isolation, a feeling I had never felt before in my life, a feeling that I was completely alone. I might as well have been living on the dark side of the moon. None of these people around me, in fact, no one anywhere, had any idea of what was actually going on around them. Not a clue. I thought to myself, these individuals deserve to know the truth. The mere fact that we're not alone in the universe. How can any one organization, institution, religion, or government control that, or censor that, or gatekeep that? No one has the right to keep fundamental truths away from the American people and humanity.
CNN has learned the Pentagon had a secretive program to research UFOs.
The existence of a secret government program to investigate UFO sightings.
A recent report by the New York Times unveiled the existence of a real-life X-Files department. It's their secret government program to investigate mysterious flying objects.
This seems potentially like one of the biggest stories of my lifetime.
These aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory.
Look at that thing, dude. My gosh.
This is a very serious national security issue. Something is in our skies. It has been there for quite some time.
There's a whole fleet of them.
You have objects that are doing things, maneuvering in ways without any obvious sign of propulsion. My submission is that what we are looking at is truly by definition, exotic technologies, beyond next generation technologies. And the bureaucracy in the Department of Defense really limited our ability to keep leadership informed of what we were seeing.
As soon as the media started paying attention, Congress started paying attention. And I started getting calls from the Hill for briefings.
Senators received a classified briefing about UFOs at the Pentagon.
Senator Mark Warner, who is the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee, said, look, I think it's important that the military is taking this more seriously now than they did in the past.
Senator Rubio and Senator Warner, to their great credit, put national security above their own personal political careers and took the risk of engaging publicly on this issue. When they began to engage, the Defense Department had to admit to the world that this was real and it was happening. And that immediately took the entire credibility of the issue up a huge notch.
The U.S. Navy has finally acknowledged that videos appearing to show UFOs flying through the air are real.
Commander David Fravor describing it like a 40-foot-long tic-tac.
The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours, and we don't know whose it is. That alone, just that statement alone, deserves inquiry, deserves attention, deserves focus.
If you have objects in the sky that you cannot identify, that's a problem because it could be China, it could be Russia, it could be any adversary.
Well, any unexplained phenomenon could pose a national security threat. That's the way you have to treat those things.
There's something violating our airspace. There's something fouling our ranges that even the people we've tasked in the executive branch to understand this cannot provide an explanation. So I would say, in addition to the national security implications, this has implications for basic trust and confidence in the American government.
We just simply don't know the origin of the phenomenon. And we're going to try to get to the bottom of it because for national defense purposes, some of these have been in areas that we train. These have been in areas where we've got some of our best equipment, and yet our best equipment has not been able to tag these things. We've not been able to go in and catch them.
No matter what they are, they're invading our airspace, and we don't know exactly why they're doing it, what their intent is, and what their capabilities are.
In addition to the national security concerns, this violation of all nations' sovereign airspace presents a safety of flight concern for all military and civilian aviation. And the even scarier thing is that the Federal Aviation Administration stopped using radar to track our air travel. They only track aircraft, predominantly commercial and civilian, that are squawking. So they're actually putting a signal into the system saying, here's where I am. The only way they know the UAP are there is if the pilot sees something and says something. The fact that the FAA is not tracking UAP is putting American lives at risk every day.
I'm Brett Feddersen. I served as the Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council and as the Acting Director for the Federal Aviation Administration's National Security Programs Office. I can say through my experience that we are absolutely not alone in this universe. The biggest thing that concerns me with UAPs is the national security concern. It's the unknown. It's the fact that this technology does stuff that we can't do. And if we can't figure out what it is or what it wants, or what it's being used for, it keeps me up at night in the idea that we're behind the power curve. We want to be able to maintain the cutting edge technology and the advantage here in the United States so that we can sleep comfortably at night and feel the safety of what the American government has provided.
There's sort of, I think, 4 hypotheses out there, one of which is that this is foreign adversary technology that we simply don't understand or weren't aware of, and that would amount to probably the biggest intelligence failure in modern American history. The second of which is that this is a robust counterintelligence program to cover up for a U.S. government effort that has fallen kind of away from congressional oversight. A third hypothesis is obviously that this is interdimensional or extraterrestrial, and then the fourth could be a combination of the previous 3.
Some of the biggest strategic blunders in human history. The foundation of those blunders were a lack of imagination, the belief that an adversary or whoever could not do something because it had never been done before. The U.S. thought it was safe for those ships in Pearl Harbor because We didn't think that the Japanese could get there, much less have torpedoes that could navigate such a narrow strait and hit these ships until they did. We never thought in our wildest dreams that terrorists would strike us in the homeland by training for a year to become pilots and then hijacking commercial aircraft and crashing them into buildings. And they did. The thing that always keeps me up at night, something in the human psyche that says, I don't have time or energy to sort of prepare for the unforeseen or what I've never seen done before. And that leads to strategic surprise and sometimes strategic surprises that change the course of human history.
There was one classified briefing that I gave to members of the House and Senate where I took military pilots to tell them the story of their encounters with UAP. Those stories left them so rattled that they had trouble sleeping that night.
The United States' most trusted military servicemen and women and irrefutable data from our intelligence collection systems have been observing UAP for decades. Everything observed can be categorized by 5 distinct performance characteristics. At ATIP, we call these the observables. The first observable is hypersonic velocity. Our current fastest aircraft can go roughly 4,600 miles per hour. However, the UAP we are observing are traveling at 40,000 miles per hour and sometimes faster. The next observable is instantaneous acceleration, a sudden change in velocity. At full speed, the SR-71, known as a Blackbird, requires roughly half the state of Ohio to complete its turn. What we are seeing with UAP are vehicles that can make immediate right-angle turns, instantaneously accelerating and stopping on a dime at speeds up to 10 times faster than the SR-71.
If you're in a sustained fight, you can get up to 7.5 Gs. It gets physically painful over time to be under that amount of gravity. And that's just going from 0 to 200 miles an hour in about 2.5 seconds. Now think of going 0 to thousands of miles an hour in less than a second, what the force would be on your body. The human body can only take so much before the internal organs start to separate themselves from everything they're hooked to, which is usually bad.
Even if it was a drone, it would rip the drone, the unmanned vehicle, apart.
The next observable is low observability. All modern technology have a signature. For example, most aircraft leave visible contrails as they fly. We usually hear a sonic boom associated with the sound barrier being broken. UAP, however, leave almost no observable signatures.
Our airplanes actually throw out exhaust behind it and thrust behind it to push it forward. Whatever these things are, they're not doing that. There's no exhaust, no particles coming off of them that we can see.
The next observable is trans-medium travel. UAP have been observed operating in space, in air, and underwater, and they are moving seamlessly through each of these environments without any normal signature and without compromising performance.
We've observed a trans-medium capability of these phenomena to move from space to the atmosphere to the ocean.
In the Aguadilla, Puerto Rico case, a DHS helicopter caught this spherical object flying. It entered the water and exited the water, so trans-medium without losing any velocity.
It goes into the ocean and makes no splash or wake at 74 miles per hour. I calculated how much force you would require just to propel a basketball under the water at 74 miles per hour, and you would need a Bezos 7 rocket motor or 2 Learjet engines. That would churn the water up like crazy. So this is a technology that's frictionless.
The next observable is anti-gravity. UAP seem to be defying the natural effects of Earth's gravity without any obvious means of doing so. No signs of propulsion or lift, meaning no wings, no control surfaces or ability to maneuver.
In 2014 to 2015, we were operating off the coast of Virginia Beach, off the eastern seaboard. It was during this time that we upgraded our radar from the APG-73 to the APG-79 radar. And this allowed us to essentially see more objects we weren't expecting to see. And there's a particular case of one of these objects maintaining a complete stationary position inside of 120 knot winds, essentially inside of a hurricane.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. So look at that thing. It's rotating.
It just seems like they're not affected by the environment the way we are.
They were tracking them from above 80,000 feet. So For those that don't know, above 80,000, that's where you start getting into space. So these things were coming down, they would sit for like 3 hours and they would go back up, which to my knowledge, we don't have anything that has the capabilities as far as the energy required to come down, hang out for 3 hours and go up.
The observed UAP capability exceeds that of even the most advanced human technologies that are developed in classified black programs.
From our exposure, I mean, there's nothing we have that comes close.